what if it looks like a mess?
We could fill a complete documentary with footage and stories of law enforcement sweeps of homeless camps, forcing people to move on with nowhere to go. And perhaps at some point we will. But for now, I simply want to humanize the reality of all such sweeps and to ask questions about their effectiveness and even their legality. In the previous segment, we established that the city of Spokane doesn't have either enough shelter beds or the right kinds of shelter beds for those struggling with homelessness in our community. If that's true, and it is, then what's the purpose of law enforcement sweeps? And what about the trauma and collateral damage that such sweeps inevitably create? Unfortunately, law enforcement sweeps of homeless encampments like this one have become daily events, with personal belongings being tossed into a city garbage truck. In the process of this sweep, one individual was injured when his hand was run over by a city garbage truck. It's time to ask ourselves, is this the best we can do as a city to serve those in need?
Our current policy in Spokane of conducting police sweeps of homeless really fits into a very long historical narrative throughout the country of using the police power of the state to try to rid us of undesirables, whoever they might be, whether it was day laborers or migrant workers, the poor, minorities, whether they be racial or sexual or otherwise. We have a long history of trying to solve that problem, as we see, with force, with the criminal sanctions, with police, with jail and judges, and punishment. And our history is very clear that it just doesn't work to meet the goals that we might have, and it's inhumane, and never goes to the root of the problem. It's just, maybe it's the easiest fix that one can reach for. We have these police already here and they can use force and we can get an immediate, by morning this area will be clear, but it doesn't do anything for the long run. It doesn't solve the root causes. If you've removed someone from the street for a day, where do they go tomorrow? And then it just shows a lack of, what's the word I'm looking for, empathy, and I think the problem solving that we need to say, if we really want to solve this problem for our sake, if not for the other person's sake who we're frustrated with, we need to figure out what the root cause is.
Let's take a look at a law enforcement sweep of a homeless encampment outside of City Gate in downtown Spokane in late January of 2021. Daytime temperatures were below freezing and all of the shelters in the city were full. Once the police realized that we were filming, they went into full PR mode, lecturing about their experience and understanding of homelessness. One person in the audience was not impressed. Gabrielle Pizarro had just received a citation for obstructing the sidewalk with a piece of cardboard. This wasn't my first encounter with Gabby, having interviewed her 3 months earlier in October of 2020 on this same spot for a documentary short piece I was doing called And Justice for Some. I've chosen to feature Gabby's experience because it highlights 6 themes that are common among the homeless who are being swept.
My name is Gabrielle Pizarro.
Tell me about your journey into homelessness. What got you started and why are you on the street right now?
I lost my son. He passed away from SIDS. I had been a hairstylist for 10 years and I was an alcoholic as well. And kind of lost myself, lost my home, got a DUI, and my family didn't know how to cope with it. And so I didn't have any support. And I just kind of fell out here. And one winter turned into 2, and I'm going on 2.5 years. It's disappointment when you get told that you're too overqualified or that there's a list and it's months and months and months long, and there's nowhere for you to go and you're getting kicked off of every block. You can't sit anywhere, you can't carry a backpack, you can't use the restroom. It's just really discouraging, and over time you just kind of give up. And I'm not one to give up, but I've lost hope, I guess, with not having options. There was a morning where I was sitting down in a parking lot to fix my pant leg. It was snowing. To fix my pant leg and tie my shoe. And nobody was around me, and I had been swarmed by the cops to being arrested sitting in the back of the car for, I didn't know what, but they cited me for trespassing in the 2nd degree when I was tying my shoe, and I was in handcuffs in the back of a car for about 45 minutes as they were interviewing 2 other people and that had been arrested as well for other charges. I was issued community court and have 8 hours of community service to complete in order to have my ticket dropped, but I was cited and arrested for no trespassing for time issue.
So tell me where you're staying now.
Under the tunnel. I'm currently homeless and I have a sleeping bag and a backpack that I take with me to sleep underneath the tunnels at night when the weather's terrible like it is now. I use cardboard boxes and the blankets that I have. So this year I've learned how to camp out in the trees and with a hammock and in tent, but constantly having to pick up and move and hoping to not lose my belongings. Currently, I am underneath one of the tunnels at night. Usually kind of get close with other people with cardboard boxes and the blankets, we just share them and keep body heat together. And it's rough because you only have so many hours a day that they allow you to sleep without having to worry about getting cited and or losing your stuff and picked up and thrown away.
And one thing the Boise decision did was it made people realize that people were being arrested for being homeless even when the shelters were full. I think a lot of people didn't realize that we had shelters that were overfull and that people literally had no place to go. And since most community members don't like having a city where people have to camp outside, and they thought there was an easy solution that they can go to shelters, and they realized, oh wait, there's actually a situation where there's more people than we have room for, we got to start investing more in that room. And we also have to think about, hopefully, how we respond when we want someone to not be on the sidewalk. Should we respond with the police, or should we respond with a homeless outreach team that provides resources? Because I think we all just were forced to confront a problem that we had really worked hard to ignore for a long time. And a decision like that, its real main power is simply to make us hopefully talk and think about these problems and actually invest some resources in fixing them.
You're about to have a brief but meaningful encounter with Shell. I first met Shell and his wife Tanya, who suffers from MS, almost a year earlier while filming a large homeless camp north of Spokane, where they were quietly living in their camper trailer. That's Tanya, second from the left in this outreach picture. But on this day, in June of 2021, they were caught up in a sweep of camps along the Spokane River.
You just lost your home? And your truck and your camper? I just asked him if he had a place he wanted to go, and he said, yeah, I just want to die now. They come and tell us we can't be here, we can't be there. It's like I got no rights as an American.
So how many times have they moved you here recently?
5.
So how does it make you feel?
Totally lost.
This sweep of homeless camps along the Spokane River took place on the hottest day on record for Spokane. At the time of the sweep, between 11 a.m. and noon, the temperature was already 100 degrees, and it would peak out that afternoon at 109. Shell's wife, Tanya, was taken into custody for medical evaluation, and their camper truck and only home were impounded. And Shell, now actually homeless thanks to the city of Spokane, was told he could go to a cooling center. Really? Isn't it time to ask ourselves, is this the best we can do as a city to serve those in need? The playlist of stories from people being swept and forced to move with nowhere to go is longer than anything we can cover in this documentary segment. But we do want to meet and hear the stories of a few more real people. It's how we humanize the impact of this misguided policy. Now, I've been told more than once that there's more to so-and-so's story that you didn't include. This is true. But people experiencing homelessness seldom, if ever, have the opportunity to tell their story in their own words from their perspective, without it being filtered by police, courts, or even agency caseworkers. In my documentaries, I try to allow people the space to tell their own stories and by doing so to participate in their own journey of personal discovery and self-healing. Meet Amy McCain, a Montana girl who's been homeless off and on in Spokane over the past 5 years. I interviewed Amy on August the 19th in a homeless camp near Iron Bridge in Spokane.
Would you talk to me about your most recent experience or two of being asked to move on? You're currently homeless, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
And can you tell me about any recent experiences you've had where you have been forced to move?
Oh, well, there's been several occasions actually in the last 5 years. I have been visiting even friends who were camping and stopped by their camp and was treated as though they didn't even listen to me. The cops came in and my friend wasn't there, but I got the ticket and lost everything. ID and purse and makeup and anything to, that would maybe help me. Like if I got any numbers gathered up to get a job, they were gone. They made me leave my stuff on the sidewalk one time because I had a warrant for that time for being in camping unlawfully on public property way out by High Bridge Park.
Let's meet Debbie Hall. I've actually followed Debbie through several homeless camps over the past year. I recently caught up with Debbie outside of Liberty Park and asked her to tell me about her recent experiences of being forced to move.
Where are you camping right now?
Right now, I'm right above Liberty Park on 3rd Street.
And where were you before you camped here?
I was up 3rd Street Hill, across the street from Ramada, or right behind Costco building, but across the street from Ramada. And yeah, right up there.
And what happened that you had to move from there down here to where you are right now?
The cleanup crew and the cops came, told me it was private property, and I had to get off there and move. And that if I didn't, then I'd be arrested. Yeah, because they say it's trespassing your private property.
How long ago was that?
I was up the hill. It was about almost 2 weeks ago. I was over here, maybe not even a week, and they came, and then they came back because I didn't leave. I was packing. I didn't leave, and they brought the cops and the cleanup crew the day before yesterday and told me that if I didn't move, then I was going to be arrested. And I moved this far. I've been here a day and a half now since I've been here. But this is city. So.
And what has happened to your property in these 2 moves now?
It's dwindled to almost nothing. I mean, between what they take and what I can grab, I've lost a lot of stuff. I mean, I've lost my bedding, I've lost clothes, I've lost blankets, I've lost tarps, food stuff, food stuff that we eat. They don't care. They take it all. And I've lost important papers that I actually needed to get my ID, which will help me. There was papers in there that I had for the IRS, and they're not going through it and saying, hey, listen, maybe she might need this. No, they're just grabbing it and considering it all garbage. And those are the papers I need now. I have to get back a hold of the IRS and have them mail me papers again, and that's just to get my ID.
Say hello to Russell Rust and his wife Jamie. I met them behind a fast food restaurant after they had been cited and swept from Mission Park. I asked Russell to tell their story of being cited, a very common story in the homeless community.
Yesterday, approximately at 11 o'clock, me and my wife were asked to leave Safeway's premises. And so she's 7 months pregnant, and we walk over to Mission Park and get there. And as soon as we lay down our blankets to rest for a little bit, a police officer rolls up, comes up and asks us for our name and everything, so we give it to him. And then we get cited and ticketed for a Safeway cart that was holding our stuff. And and then we're kicked out of Mission Park for 6 months. And I don't think it's fair at all, honestly, because we didn't do nothing wrong.
Finally, meet Chancey Lee. I arrived to film in Coeur d'Alene Park just as the police were finishing up, telling Chancey that if he didn't move on, they would impound his truck and arrest him. But I'll let him tell his own story.
How long have you been here in Coeur d'Alene Park?
About 3 or 4 months in and out.
And are you, you're leaning against your truck there. Are you staying in a shelter or in your truck? Where are you staying?
Live in my truck.
And where were you living before you came down here to Coeur d'Alene Park?
HOC. The other one is Union Gospel Mission, but they won't let you hardly stay there either.
So at this point, there's no place for you to stay, is that right?
No, you just got, everybody leaves here, they'll go make their own spot. And then eventually everybody gathers together, and that's how it winds up looking like this.
Okay, if you were up at HOC in that area, why did you leave?
Police and was told to. Because you can't, they don't want you camping, they say no camping, no squatting. There's no other place to go.
So you came down here, and what happened here yesterday or today?
They just, they show up, they ask you to, they pull your name and then they just tell you it's time, you got to go or you'll be arrested.
And that's what they told you?
Yeah. They said, well, they would impound my truck and arrest me. And I'm in and out down here. I sleep down here a lot in the streets, but I don't sleep in the park. And it's nice to have this park because it's got water. There's no water in Spokane to be had. You cannot go into bathrooms like you used to. And down around HOC, it's really, really bad down there. Because there's no water. They will not let you in the building at HOC unless you spend the night. It's quarantined off. They got big steel gates around it. That's a shelter.
It's really unfortunate. I think that there's so many better tools available. They are usually less expensive, more humane, and more long-term. The thing is, we need to have all of us invested in that. This is the other tools that we might need, like funding, like places to go, community support programs, treatment, housing, require political will, community will, financial commitment, all the things that are a little bit harder to do and take more time and attention. Whereas if you give it to the police, that's their problem. They'll take care of it. Don't have to think about it anymore, out of sight, out of mind. And I think that's where the main disconnect is.
As someone who's worked among the homeless and marginalized of our city for over 15 years, I believe law enforcement sweeps of the homeless offer the most tangible and visible evidence of a failed homeless policy, or the absence of any actual policy at all. If sweeps were effective in solving urban homelessness, the city wouldn't need to do them on a 24/7 basis, which is what's happening now. But it gets worse. Such ineffective sweeps offer compelling evidence of an undeclared war against anyone experiencing homelessness on the streets or in the parks of our community. Homeless individuals are being openly told that there's no place they can legally go and camp. In other words, their existence is illegal outside of a shelter or jail. Because the city is legally prevented from citing the homeless for violating sit and lie and no camping ordinances due to a lack of sufficient shelter beds, law enforcement is increasingly citing the homeless for other things, such as third-degree possession of stolen property. What property? A shopping cart. They're also being aggressively cited for obstructing pedestrian traffic, as we saw with Gabby Pizarro. Municipal courts are overwhelmed with the volume of these frivolous citations, but it gets worse. Law enforcement is also aggressively citing bystanders with criminal citations for obstructing traffic if they stop to observe or film a sweep. How do I know? Because this is footage of one such sweep where the observer was criminally cited for stopping to film the sweep. If there's an undeclared war against the homeless and those trying to support them, this is what it would look like.
One thing that's very concerning to me is the new trend towards arresting and prosecuting people who are trying to help the homeless. We've seen a number of cases where people are there just to either try to provide services and get arrested, or giving out water, or filming the interaction, just witnessing what's going on. And for some reason, the Spokane Police Department has chosen, and the prosecutor's office, have chosen to make those into criminal offenses. And one can ask the question of whether they are criminal offenses and whether there's probable cause, and those will be argued out in court. But the bigger question is why it's even going that direction in the first place. You know, our law enforcement has massive discretion about when and whether to arrest somebody. They can see a jaywalker and decide not to cite that person because they got bigger things to focus on. And they could deal with somebody who is in their way in many different ways. They could either ignore the person or ask them politely to move or whatever. Warn them that next time they would be arrested. But for some reason, there's a decision that's been made at a policy level that we're going to bring the force of the law down on people who aren't even doing anything that would normally be considered a crime because we want to make them stop doing that. It's a deterrent factor. The offenses are not so serious it'll land someone in prison, but it's enough to keep somebody from wanting to help again.
Let's be blunt. The city of Spokane can order local law enforcement to conduct sweeps of the homeless from bridges, parks, and camps from now until hell freezes over, and it'll make no difference in the numbers of those experiencing homelessness that we've seen in this documentary. Sweeps won't change the reality of people experiencing homelessness having no place to go. And sweeps won't change the reality of having only 769 beds in the current citywide shelter system. Ongoing sweeps will simply perpetuate a cruel exercise, an ongoing game of homeless whack-a-mole, while providing a sad confirmation of the rubric that we don't want to solve homelessness, we just don't want to see it.
You'd like them to get a job, but there's so many steps to getting a job that they could do if they got the job, but getting an outfit for to look nice for the interview. How do you apply in the first place if it's only online? Where do you get child care if you need it, or things like that? And so there's never going to be an easy one-size-fits-all solution because every single case is different. And what needs to happen is people who will invest the time to figuring out what explains that situation and what the solution is for that situation. It's never going to be, in my experience, that the person simply needs more motivation. If they're motivated by the fact that they're cold and they're hungry and they're sleeping outside and they're not safe, and having a police officer come and make their lives worse is not the kick in the pants they needed to finally start taking action. They've had all the motivation they need. If anything, it just takes away what little bit of hope they may have had and motivation, and provides one more barrier to have to overcome on top of everything else. Now there's a citation to deal with and a fine and a jail sentence, and their stuff maybe got taken away, and they're even farther behind.
I don't want to see people sleeping on sidewalks or camping under bridges or in local parks either. But I want their absence to be the result of sufficient low-barrier shelters and day centers with appropriate beds where they can go to find safety and stability, along with sufficient low-barrier, low-income housing they can move into when they're ready. But in the tightest housing market in a generation, there simply isn't sufficient housing, and new affordable housing takes time to build. In the interim, sufficient low-barrier shelters and beds are needed now as transitional places for those who have nowhere else to go. It shouldn't be this hard for us as a community to wrap our heads around this simple reality. Isn't it time to ask ourselves, is this the best we can do as a community to serve those in need? I believe the answer is no, because I believe we can do better.